because you are famously
Well,
the only person to have ever beaten Tiger Woods in match play twice.
true.
What is that like? I mean, well, I'm very excited about this, Nick O'Hearn. Welcome to Shaped.
Thank you.
I love the game of golf. I'm no good at it.
That's what handicaps are for.
So outside of learning more about your journey and the things that have shaped you, my expectation of us catching up is that I've become a very good golfer after this chat.
By osmosis, maybe.
Just pass it through the vibes. That'd be very
anything.
helpful. I can't chip, can't putt. I can drive. That's about my only area where I'm a little bit consistent, but the rest is pretty average. So any tips would be great. But let's start where your journey started in life, and that was over in Perth in WA. Did you have brothers, sisters?
2 brothers, older.
Both brothers older?
Both brothers older. There's only a 6-month difference between the two of them, and people always go, how is that possible? But my oldest brother, Greg, was adopted because my mum had a lot of miscarriages early days, and they decided, well, we'll go down the adoption route because I don't think we can have kids. And then sure enough, she fell pregnant again and had the middle brother, Troy, who's 2 or 3 years older than me. I'm the youngest, which it's funny. I've spoken to a lot of people about this. The youngest sibling, I think if you ask most professional athletes, they're typically the youngest sibling.
Yeah.
Because they're always fighting and trying to beat the older one. And in my case, that was certainly it, because Greg, my eldest, he wasn't a sports person of any sort. It was Troy, the middle one, who was good at everything, basically. So I was always trying to beat him and do whatever he did. And then my dad as well, Mel, he just had the gift. Anything with a bat and a ball, he could do it. He was exceptionally talented as well.
He was pretty handy at golf himself. What, he got down to 3, 4?
My dad?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, he played baseball for Australia many years in the 60s, 70s, and had quite the career there. Then he just turned to golf, and I thought, okay. And he thought, let's give this a go. Joined the local club, Mount Lawley in Perth, which is where still all members. My brother's the GM now, Troy, funnily enough.
Right. There you go.
So it's very much a family connection. But he was always very handy. He never really had any lessons, but he always off single figures and shot his age many times, although it's getting harder now, he said, because they just renovated the course and it's a bit tricky.
A little bit more challenging. You yourself grew up, athletics was a little bit of your junior days, I suppose.
Played all sports,
Yep.
yeah, like any kid, I guess, growing up in Australia, you tend to. For me, wasn't the typical ones. It wasn't football or cricket. It was actually more... I was really good at baseball, tennis, and golf. They were my 3. I loved basketball, but knees and things like that got in the way. I was probably better at baseball and tennis than I was at golf, funnily enough. So I was in state teams for baseball, but never for golf.
Yeah.
So,
And at what age was that you were representing the state?
I think it was under
sports?
13s or something like that. It was pretty early days. But I always found with team sports, especially baseball, is I'd play well and we'd still lose. So I thought, well, this sucks.
Yeah, right.
So for me, the individual nature of golf really grabbed me, and even though I wasn't very good at the time.
Speaking of that, how hard is it to make a decision that, and at what age was the decision made that you would pursue this a little bit more seriously and potentially have the opportunity to make a career of it?
1986, the US Masters, the Golden Bear, Jack Nicklaus won that one. If you like your golf, I know your father-in-law loves his golf, Rick.
Does.
And I remember watching Jack win the Green Jack, and I thought that's what I want to do. And I was probably 14 or 15 at the time, and just thought, yep. And again, I wasn't that great a talent or anything as a kid growing up. The lowest handicap I ended up getting down to was 2 when I was 16.
Yeah.
And then when I finished school, I was off about a 4 handicap, but I wanted to play golf for a living, so I ended up doing a traineeship at the couple of local public courses in Perth, and thought I'll figure the game out. I'm sure I'm going to be good enough, but I thought, well, I just want to be a pro golfer, so I went down that route. Learned how to teach, work in a pro shop, run a golf course. Basically, had a couple of fantastic bosses, Tim Crosby and Craig Duncan, who were just yin and yang of golf pros, I would say. Craig was one of the best salespeople you'll ever meet, and Tim just had a knack for people, and they really rubbed off each other really well. So I learnt a lot under them, which is fantastic about people and how to deal with people. So And then I got, I finished my 3-year traineeship at the age of 22, married my girlfriend, my sweetheart, Alana, who thankfully 30-something years later, we're still married.
Standing by your side.
Yeah, she's a very understanding woman, obviously.
we will get to Alana and the journey you guys have been on together.
And then after I finished my traineeship and I was a fully qualified pro, I said to her, look, I want to play this game for a living. She said, what? Well, you're actually not good enough. So, and I wasn't at the time. Yeah. I mean, I was struggling to break 80. So the next few years were interesting. I was trying to play pro-am circuits and make my way up in the ranks. But if anything, I was just getting worse. And it sort of all came to a tipping point. I'm fast tracking a little bit here, but probably when I was 24, 25, around that age, we were playing a tournament up in Geraldton, about 4 hours north of Perth. 3-day event called the Sporting Park Open, and I shot rounds of 86, 88 and 82 to finish in golfing terms DFL, which is dead effing last, as you might say. Wasn't great. And Alana and I were in the car park afterwards. She caddied for me, obviously, the 3 days, and she said, look, if you're going to make this thing a go, we need to make a plan. We need to have some sort of a strategy to it. And because I was in tears just thinking, what am I doing in my life? I don't want to go back to work in a pro shop. And in the car park of that golf club in Geraldton, we set out a 3-year plan to sort of figure out, okay, how do we do this properly? And we structured it much like a business plan. We said, okay, golf swing wise, I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't understand what I'm trying to do. I didn't have a good coach at the time. So I needed to find a good coach. That was the first thing. Then secondly, my mental game was shot. When on the golf course, I really had no clue what I was thinking out there, and I was pretty negative most of the time. And then thirdly, I needed to work harder on my diet, my fitness, and really sort of become more of an athlete, I guess you'd say. So apart from my swing, my mental game, my fitness, I was world class, I can tell you. So,
had all the attributes.
Yeah,
outside
exactly.
Of that.
But yeah.
Speaking of that, because I would assume that is certainly a defining moment in your career. From that plan, then you go off and start to execute on it. What does that actually look like from a coaching point of view? Did you have to do research on, what were the flaws in my game that I really needed to harness? Who's the right person to fix a swing in the industry?
Correct, yeah.
Or whatever it was that you needed to fix up. Mental, I'm interested in both the physical components, but also, I look at golfers and I go, to me, there is no other sport where each shot relies just an insane amount of focus from the way you set yourself up, the way you strike the ball, body position, angles, clarity in the mind. How deep did you start to go with regards to the mental preparation? And would it be fair to say that you became known for your resilience and discipline to actually get to work in those areas?
Probably, yeah. That was, people sort of thought of myself as having a pretty strong mental game as my career progressed. But going to your point about, you're talking about golf and how it's so fascinating. I always tell people, and a lot of people, sports people especially, disagree with me. I always say golf is the hardest sport from a mental perspective. And the reason being is because in golf, the ball is stationary. Every other sport, the ball moves.
Yeah.
Football, for example, the hardest part about football mentally is full forwards kicking set shots on goal, because they got to stop and think.
Yeah, true.
So, I've spoken to this to a few of my mates who are footballers, like Jack Gunston with Hawthorn and a while back. And I think every football club should employ a golf pro to give them a pre-kick routine. We have a pre-shot routine in golf. You could carry that into football to make it a pre-kick routine, because that moment from when you take your first step in to kicking a goal to when you actually kick the ball, that's so crucial. And how you develop that routine is how you get the best full forwards in the game, I think. So flipping back to the golfing side of things, coach-wise, it's funny, when we made this plan, and my wife, she's fascinating. She has a way of just knowing stuff, right, without even me realizing it. And if she listens to this, she'll get a kick out of it. But she's very empathic. She sort of has a way of putting things out into the universe, and the right things happen at the right time. And at that moment, a new pro took over at my golf club at Mount Lawley, a guy called Neil Simpson. He became the head professional there, and went to see him for a lesson, and straight away, bang, we just clicked. And funnily enough, as it turned out, Neil, I think I'm the only professional golfer Neil's ever coached full time. I mean, he may get the odd pro seeing him, but he typically coaches members at golf clubs. So he has an unusual style, but it fit me perfectly. I've sent people to Neil to go have a lesson, and they walk away scratching their head. Others kind of go, I sort of get it, but with him and me, we just clicked straight away. So I knew I was on the right path there. From a mental perspective, my wife rang, funnily enough, the West Coast Eagles Football Club, said, who's your sports psychologist? And they put me onto a guy called Neil McLean, who was the clinical psychologist at the University of WA. He ended up, funnily enough, being a sports psych for the Dockers as well, and for the Australian Hockey Roos. He's big into sports.
Fair guru.
Very much so. So the first time I went and saw Neil, he was a bit shocked that I didn't really have a plan or a process. So he really put me on the straight and narrow there, and really just gave me the foundation so that when you do get nervous, when you feel pressure, you have system in place to be able to deal with it. Because I really didn't have any coping mechanisms. So that's really the biggest thing, because everyone gets nervous. Tiger Woods gets nervous. Whoever you think about the elite athletes in any sport, they're all nervous, but it just depends on how you deal with it and do you have the coping mechanisms. So that was a big part of it. And then funnily enough, some members at the golf club where I was at, they were osteopaths, and they knew a fitness guy who really got me on the straight and narrow there. So the plan we put in place was a 3-year plan, as it turned out. Alana said to me, look, in 3 years' time, if you don't have a status on the Aussie tour, well, maybe it's time to do something else, which wasn't a big ask, because plenty of guys can get their cards on the Australian tour at the time.
Yep.
Turns out, through doing this and really getting the foundations in place, 15 months later, I was leading the Australian Open, 1997 at the Metropolitan Golf Club.
Yeah.
So the 3-year plan to be fully exempt, I actually achieved in just under a year and a half, because I won enough money there to get exempt status, and then we were kind of on our way.
Reflecting on it now, because you speak to, whether it's corporates, it's parents, when you actually start to put stuff down on a piece of paper or a plan in place, and yes, it might be a 3-year plan, and as you said, it only took 18 months for it to kind of come to fruition. Did it surprise you how quickly those things started to happen, and has it influenced the way you do things now in life?
At the time, no, because it just seemed as though it was a natural progression. But when looking back, you go, wow, I was shooting in the mid-80s to all of a sudden leading the Australian Open. How is that possible? And other golfers around me at the time, later on when I saw them, throughout my career, they said, how the hell did you do it? And I was like, well, I met the right people, number one. It's so hard to do things on your own. That's the first and foremost. You have to have a plan and a structure in place. I do a bit of mentoring of, up and coming tour pros these days. And I'm always talking about, have a process, have a structure that you can build and work towards. And I always, back in the day, had a daily philosophy, funnily enough, of how can I get better today? So when I went to bed at night, I wanted to be better when I woke up that morning. So how can I structure my day for daily improvement rather than looking in the long term? I want to be number one in the world. Fantastic. Yeah, but that's way off. How can you get better today? You can control those things. So always look to the things you can control. Interestingly, say now, how do I put it in day-to-day life? Well, what I've realized now is, after retiring from golf, probably about 8 years ago, full-time play, I've started getting back to that again. Since I stopped playing, I went into other things and started dabbling in various projects, and realized I probably didn't do the things that helped me during my golfing career into post-playing career. So now I'm starting to do that and realizing, okay, that kind of makes sense again. I'm a slow learner.
No. We all are. Don't worry. I've had that exact same experience over the last 18 months as well. From a journey point of view, you do start to play in the bigger competitions. As you progressed and eventually reached the top 20 in the world, which is just an amazing achievement in itself, how did the pressure or the expectations you started to put on yourself change and alter, those moments where naturally you would just get up and you would start to go through your routine? Like obviously in those high pressure situations, you're counting on that coming to fruition, but I'm assuming there's times where you go, I shit the bed.
Pretty much, yeah. People often ask me, what's the most nervous you've ever been? And I can hands down say 2005 President's Cup. We're playing in Washington, D.C. I think the reason I got so nervous was because it was a team environment. I had 11 other guys on my team, the international team versus America in the President's Cup, that were relying on me. So all of a sudden I'm thinking, oh, these are my peers that are, expecting me to do well. Whereas normally in an individual game like golf, if I don't play well, I'm thinking, well, okay, I can deal with that.
Yeah, got
But when you
yourself
got
to
a team,
blame, and it only impacts me and my
yeah,
family.
and your
or
family
in a
and all that,
network.
which
Yep.
is still pressure, but
Yeah.
it's slightly different when you've got players alongside you
Yeah.
saying, "Come on, you need to execute here." So, first morning we play, I was paired with a guy called Tim Clark, a South African golfer, and we're going up against Phil Mickelson and Chris DeMarco, two pretty big hitters in the US game at the time. It's an alternate shot format. It's called foursomes. So one guy hits off, and then the next player hits the next shot, etc., etc. You alternate hitting the same ball. Now, the way it works is one player tees off the odd-numbered holes, one player tees off the evens. So Tim and I are on the range beforehand discussing, okay, which holes do you want to tee off, odds or evens, blah, blah, blah. We're going through the golf course. In the end, I said, well, I'll take odds. I think those holes suit me better. You take evens. I said, yeah, sure. Walking to the first tee, I realised, number one, that's an odd number. I've got the opening tee shot. Okay. Forgot about that. Anyway, you got to go through this little tunnel to get to the first tee, which is surrounded by grandstands. I mean, it's packed, 10,000 people, whatever. It's huge around the first tee. Walk onto the tee, and our two captains are there. Mine is 9-time major winner Gary Player, a bit of a legend of the game. Standing next to him is the US captain, my idol, the guy who I wanted to become a golf pro because of, was Jack Nicklaus. And then standing next to them was Presidents Bill Clinton and George Bush Sr.
Just a little bit of pressure.
So my heart's going pretty good right now. And I get behind the ball, and it's my tee shot, and I'm standing behind the ball. And all of a sudden I realise my knees have started shaking. And when your knees start shaking, that's not a good thing, because the next thing that happens is you tend to pass out. So you talk about trying to get a grip, because it was at that moment I thought, well, if I don't get a handle of this situation, the people are trouble, on the sides of the fairways, because I might line drive it straight into them. So the one thing I've always been good at in the game of golf, and I think in sport in general, is the best players or the best athletes bring their minds back into the present moment. Pressure, I actually think pressure is a made-up word.
Yeah.
Pressure's thinking about something that hasn't happened yet. Typically, an outcome which is probably not good, right?
Yep.
The best players then go, okay, I don't want to be thinking about that. What should I be thinking about? And myself, I always ask myself a question. I said, what do I have to do right now? So as I was standing behind that ball, I thought, right, well, this is a par 4. I want to hit a drive down the left side, little draw, being a left-hander. Okay, great. Okay, well, what sort of a swing should I be feeling? So I was going through my practice swings, just feeling the swing. So all of a sudden, I brought the attention back to what I should be doing rather than what I shouldn't, which is, looking like an idiot in front of Jack or killing someone on the side of the fairway. So I got my mind back into the moment, and I ripped this thing off the first. It was probably the longest drive I hit all week because of the adrenaline. And I just remember walking off that tee going, oh, thank God. Anyway.
It's amazing that, you can be at the top of your game and still you face the same kind of stress. Or, I think back, my daughter recently played a game with my elder daughter, where kids are kind of 4 years older than her. And the same sort of feelings that I've felt during my AFL professional career, and I'm assuming the same sort of feelings you felt on a tee box, were exactly what she was going through. So it's so important that coming back to focusing on what can I control and what can I do right now literally is applicable to everyone and it doesn't necessarily need to be in sport.
No.
It can be in driving your car or making a decision
everyday
in the boardroom.
Life. And the problem is now we've got this thing called a phone in front of us, and we're always doing this and this. Whereas if you can put it down and just have breakfast and just focusing on biting into a piece of toast, I find myself trying to do that these days. Very hard to do.
How did that round finish up? And what is it like representing the internationals?
It was pretty cool. At the time, I think. See, at the time, the internationals now don't have a great record. We've only ever won one. I think we've drawn one and lost about 13 or 14. But at that particular moment, we'd only lost 3 or 4, I think.
Yeah.
And we just got pipped at the post that year. I think, we just were lost by 1 point. But it was a brilliant week. Got to have dinner at the White House, something I thought I'd never do. Had my picture taken with President George W. at the time, which turned out helped me get my green card later on, which was fantastic. Just hanging around those sorts of people like Gary Player and Ian Baker Finch was there, and Ernie Els, and a lot of the Aussies were there, Stuart Appleby and Peter Lonard and all those sorts of guys. So just hanging amongst those sorts of people. You don't get to pick people's brains too much in golf, like your people that you're playing with, because they're trying to do their own thing. Team environments, it's a great thing to have around you, but not so much in golf. So it was fascinating. I loved it.
And is that the same, throughout your whole career, where, many Australians have been great golfers? Is it very much a selfish kind of sport where you're protecting all your IP and little moments or wins that you've had along the way that help you with your game? Or is there a natural willingness to kind of go, I really want to help him because he's one of my country counterparts?
I think the Aussies especially tend to help each other a bit. It really depends on the personality. Yeah. You'll see people who are like, no, I'm doing my own thing. And then you see something like Justin Thomas, American golfer, won recently, and he spent some time with Xander Schauffele, who's the number 2 player in the world, and Xander was helping JT out. And you go, okay, well, that's great. I mean, he's probably going to beat you for that. So do you want to be giving it away? But I always find when I was coming through the ranks, guys like Peter Senior, Wayne Riley, funnily enough, when I first went to Europe, those were guys that I could pick their brains and they'd happily share information. And I think you'll find most people are pretty willing, because what works for one person actually may not work for the other anyway. So you're not sort of giving trade secrets away. Someone who never gave anything away was Tiger Woods. I mean, I lived in the same community as him in the US, the gated community called Isleworth, and you'd never be having a conversation with him about golf, that's for sure. So,
maybe speaking of that point, maybe it was him that needed to have the conversation with you, because you are famously the only person to have ever beaten Tiger Woods in match play twice.
True.
What is that like? I mean, you speak to people who are non-golfing fans, and Tiger Woods is still a known name. What is it like to beat someone of that stature?
Yeah, kind of
in match play.
It was pretty cool. I'd never played with Tiger before up until that point. It was that same year of the President's Cup, 2005, and it was a bizarre. Probably I was in peak form in the mid 2000s. That was when I was playing some of my best golf, and which was a really weird time, because my wife Alana, she was because we went through IVF with both our kids, so she actually was home in Australia. We had a lot of trouble with pregnancies and things like that. So she stayed back in Australia a lot of the time while I traveled overseas. And it was the same thing with this. She was going through an IVF cycle or something when I was playing the match play in the US. And so she wasn't there with me. My caddy was. And we went into that match kind of going, right, how the hell do we beat this guy? He's number 1 player in the world. How are we going to do it? So we actually came up with a plan. We thought about it and we said, right, history shows he had only ever won his majors leading or being tied for the lead going into the final round. He'd never won a major coming from behind. And if you watch his tournament records, he's the ultimate front runner. He gets the lead and you're done.
Yep.
So my caddy, guy called James Williams, or Wilbur as we called him, we said, right, can't get behind him. Just got to get ahead. As it turned out, on the first hole, I've got an 8-foot putt to halve the hole. So if I miss this putt, I go 1 down, which is not
a good sign,
considering what we'd planned or discussed. The plan was good. It's just a little harder to execute, right? So anyway, I'm lining the putt up, and I'm thinking, I think it's right edge or something. And I call Wilbur and I say, look, can you have a look, see what you think? And I said, what do you think? And he goes, what do I think? He said, I think this is for the match.
Cop that.
I kind of went, okay, thanks. Yeah. But Wilbur was the kind of caddy, and we had a great relationship where he knew that would just lock me in. I mean, that would go, right, yep, I need to really focus and lock in now, as opposed to, oh, what do you mean? But he was right. We had a plan. Let's stick to it. Okay. I rolled the putt in, thankfully. Birdied the next 2 hole. We're 2 up after 3. And then on the 4th tee, Wilbur whispers to me, thankfully, so Tiger couldn't hear. He said, right, you got your foot on his throat. Let's keep it there. I'm like, yeah, let's go. And I played great all day. I mean, I was probably 6 under or something like that through the end of the match. And we ended up winning 3 and 1. And my wife, funnily enough, Alana, she was back in Perth and we were in California. She wakes up in the middle of the night and sees me playing against Luke Donald. And she's going, Luke Donald? No, he's meant to be playing Tiger. And then it dawns on her, Oh, he's beaten Tiger. Now he's playing Luke Donald in the afternoon. So she woke the whole neighbourhood up, and we had a great laugh about it afterwards. So, yeah.
You've mentioned something there, and I know that it's kind of bizarre that it was around Tiger Woods and those famous victories, but IVF, I mean, a lot more people speak about it nowadays. You're talking, I mean, your daughters, you got Riley and Hallie.
Yep.
They're around 20 years old, so it's a long time ago. How is that process, particularly when you are living overseas at the time?
Yeah, we that was
Or travelling a lot?
Yeah, early 2000s, mid 2000s. We'd spend half the year in the UK when we played European tour. I was still playing in the European tour, and then a little bit in America. Hadn't moved to America full time yet, so we'd live mostly in Europe or London, and then we'd come back to Australia for 5 or 6 months as well. So interesting time. I mean, I'm 53 now, and that's early. We got married young, but my wife Alana said to me, "If I'm 30 and I don't have kids, we're done." I'm like, okay. So we started trying in, I think, our late 20s, but just had no luck, So then we went and saw the doctors, went through all that, and they've gone, "Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen naturally. You need to go down this IVF route." And we went through quite a number of cycles where things just didn't work. And then our first daughter, Riley, she got pregnant with her, and then at about the 19-week mark, was like, oh, she's coming, or bleeding and that sort of thing, which isn't great, obviously. So Alana's probably spent the next 3 months bed rest on her back, which is a horrible thing for anyone to go through. And but I was still trying to keep my job, my playing status in Europe. So I just kept doing laps, back to Europe, back to Australia, back to Europe, back to Australia when she went through all that. Fortunately, we had Riley, and everything went well there. And then a couple of years later, the same thing happened. She fell pregnant with our youngest daughter, Hallie. It's bizarre, the coincidences, how these things happen. Same thing again. She's coming early, and the doctors always say, well, it's 21 weeks, no chance, right? Yeah. As each week goes past, they go, well, it's 5% chance now it's 10%. And, she's lying down in hospital going through this whole thing. And it's a weird thing to go through. I mean, as a parent, anything happens to your kids, and even though they're unborn, you feel as though they're part of your family already, and it's bizarre. So travel-wise for me, I just lap the world, just keep coming back. But it was much harder on Alana and the family here than it was for me doing. It was almost an escape for me to get away. On the golf course, felt like a bit of not a safe haven, but I could I can take my mind away from that. Let's focus on this. As soon as that last putt was holed, off the course, back on the phone. Okay, how's everything going back home? And I'd be away for 3 weeks, then I'd come home for a week, be away for 3, sort of do those in cycles. And very challenging time as it turned out. But weirdly, I played some of my best golf. So,
do you think it helped with an attitude of like what's really important?
Exactly.
Is life, family, your wife. I mean, I know going through 3 pregnancies, seeing what your partner does go through and put their body through and so forth. I mean, that's a whole new level, having to be bed rest for 3 months. And the IVF journey as well. I know that can be taxing both physically, but also the emotional side of it. Did it help with just kind of going, well, this is my job. I'm out here. I get to swing a golf club, and that's with all the greatest of respects, because I know how much it feels shit when someone says, oh, you got to play footy for a job. There is a lot of pressure that comes with that. But do you think it was that attitude of, you know what, whether I play shit or play good, it actually doesn't matter. What really matters is at home, and that's what I'm going back to.
I think you're spot on. It gives you an overall sense of how, well, not how life should be, but I always played my best golf when I think my personal life was, and it's kind of weird to say that, was at its best, but when you're happy off the course, you're happy on the course. But through the stressful times off the course, in that instance, we're all having the same goal, the same thing to work towards. So that also helped as well. But it gave me a sense of, if I don't play well, my wife, my youngest daughter, is going to still love me. We'll be fine. The newborn, I'm sure she'll love me as well. When she comes along, hopefully, all that sort of a thing. And the same thing happened a few years after my youngest was born. We were living in the States, and she got very sick. I was in Palm Springs playing a tournament in California, And my wife rings me saying, we got a problem. I'm in the emergency room. Hallie, they thought it was meningococcal,
Yeah.
which is obviously not good. But then as it turned out, it was something called Kawasaki's disease. And I've gone, what the hell's that? I know Kawasaki's a motorbike, but what is this? And anyway, long story short, it's one of these diseases that you can't diagnose until everything else is put out of contention. So, but the thing is, if you don't treat it within a week, then it gets really serious. They can have heart problems and bad stuff happens then. So by the 6th or 7th day, they finally figured out, well, we think it's Kawasaki's. We've got to give her a treatment. It's some sort of a plasma that they've got to inject into her. And if this works, we'll know straight away. If it doesn't, we've got problems. So anyway, that was probably one of the scariest weeks of my life as well. Yeah. And my wife's and our family. So it just puts into perspective what is, really important. And now we've got, two very healthy, happy young girls with American accents living in Melbourne these days because they grew up in America.
I've always loved the idea of, I was very sheltered growing up, kind of never really, my biggest trips were for footy camps interstate, and that was about as big as it got. I was lucky enough to go to South Africa for a program at 15 odd years old. Speaking of the girls and the journey of them living overseas and so forth, do you think it's helped with them from a confidence point of view, being well versed in different cultures, understanding people are different? And would you recommend it for someone like me?
Absolutely.
For a period of time.
For a period. Well, a little different in our case. We moved to America when they were, I think, 3 and 6 months old. So because my job took me there it's like, well, if we're going to play the PGA Tour, we have to live there.
Yeah.
You can't, like with Europe, you can go back and forth from Australia. America, you just can't do it. So they only knew really America. And my eldest daughter, Riley, when she was 3, she had a little Aussie accent. And I can still remember it.
Yeah.
Because ever since we moved to America, that's gone. So that's over almost 20 years ago. So, because now they've still got the accent. So we were there almost 13 years. So they grew up with America, basically, and everything that goes with it. And there's things I love about America and things I'm not that enamored with. The politics is one thing. Don't even want to go down that route. But one thing I love about the place is how upbeat and positive they all are. In Australia, we have this, oh, gee, you're doing quite well. Maybe getting a bit too big for your boots. In America, it's like, good on you. Fantastic. Just keep going, son. You're the best ever, And even though that may be false in a way, it still just lifts you every day and thinking, gee, I actually am pretty good, As opposed to here, I find it's an attitude of, am I really that good? I'm not sure, So it's a bizarre way to look at it. So
it's a really important point though, because
huge.
The thing I've learned about, positive mantras or affirmations and the impact that can have on someone. But when you live in a country where often when you're going well, people want to bring you down and make it kind of a level playing field, it must impact people, particularly when they're sports people. It's like, mate, good on you. Rap to see you win. Go and do it again. Whereas it's like, oh, well, see if you can do it again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yourself.
But that was a bit of a fluke, It's I mean, one of the weirdest stories I'll always remember over there, I was playing a Pro-Am in Greensboro, North Carolina. It was a tournament. It was the Wyndham Championship, but the Pro-Am is the day before. So I've got 3 guys with me that I'm, sponsors that I'm entertaining and playing with. And one of them said, oh, my buddy Chip's going to come along. Chip, typical American name. I think his name was Chuck. It was Chuck and Chip. And anyway, his buddy comes along, Chuck comes along, or Chip or whatever it was. And he says to his buddy, he says, you've been working out? You look fantastic. And the guy goes, I have, thanks. Yeah, it's brilliant. And I'm standing there kind of going, like, as Australians we do. And then he says to him, get a haircut? He says, yeah, oh, great, best haircut I've seen. And I thought, are these guys serious? But they were actually serious. And you stand there, you go, yeah, it kind of all makes sense now. That's why they're so, positive and uplifted. And the way of life they have over there is very different, I think, to down here. But some things are good. The sarcasm gene tends to skip a few generations over there every now and then. Because I remember taking the mickey out of a buddy of mine who was an Aussie, Stuart Appleby. He was around the corner and we'd take the piss out of each other, basically. And one friend says to me, gee, you don't like Stewie very much, do you? And I said, mate, the more I take the piss out of him means the more I like him. He goes, really? I said, yeah, that's the way we operate.
Sounds like I need to go and play some golf in the States so that instead of your mates giving you absolute flack, hoping that you don't hit it past the ladies' tee, they're cheering for you, or as they would say, rooting for you over there.
I'll give you a mulligan.
To wrap up the career component, or the golfing career component, the best advice you ever received?
Ooh, best advice. That's interesting. I remember my dad said to me early on, he said, son, you've only got to be good at one thing. Just be damn good at it.
Yeah, right.
So I'll always remember that bit of advice, because I thought, if I'm going to play golf for a living, I've just got to be the best that I can possibly be. I'd rather be really good at golf and not, and rather than average or pretty good at a lot of things. You've almost got to develop your own little niche in a way and just excel as much as you possibly can. So I've always found whatever I've put my attention into, I'm just going to be the best that I can possibly be at that one thing. Whereas trying to spread yourself too thin, funnily enough, because that's kind of what I'm doing a bit these days, can get a little confusing at times. So I need to get back into that sort of a mindset.
Great advice. Love that. Your lowest point in your career or life so far?
Oh, career or life? Gosh. Well, career would have been that that car park at Geraldton when we made it was the turning point, both good and bad. It was the worst I'd ever felt, but at the same time I look back and think, well, if that hadn't happened, none of this would have happened. And at the same time, if I'd never married Alana, I know this wouldn't have happened as well. So I've been very lucky there. As far as life goes, it's a tough one. I think probably the second time with our youngest daughter Hallie, when the doctors sort of came in and said, she's basically got a 5% chance. That's when you go, wow, okay, yeah. Everything else just melts away, and you just kind of hold your hands together, pray a little bit if that's what you're into, and cross your fingers and everything else. And luckily, Alana crossed her legs enough for it to work out in our favour. And I don't know how she did it, but amazing.
I've got the next question as who's had the biggest influence in your life, but how big an influence has Alana had in your life? Because my understanding is that, one, she was your caddy prior to being able to afford to have your own caddy. You guys made the decision as part of that 3-year plan, I assume, that you're going to put a mortgage on the house, you're going to really back yourselves in and have a crack at making something of this. That's pretty ballsy at a young age together, with all other hopes and dreams outside of just the golfing dream.
Well, she answers both of your questions right there, because she kind of believed in me when no one else did. My parents were always supportive, but they probably weren't sure, is he really going to make it? I mean, he's not bad, but anyway. Whereas Alana, when I first started dating her and I was into golf and all this sort of thing, and then we got married, and early on in my career, she said, well, let's give it a go. I was fortunate in a way that her own path, she wasn't quite sure what she wanted to do. She's an artist, so she there's a combination for what do your parents do when you go to school. My daughter's, well, I got a golf pro and a professional golfer and an artist, so two of the most insecure jobs in the world. So she was just working temp jobs and trying to just make some income so that I could go out and play, and we just throw everything on credit cards, remortgage the house, as you say, just a little unit we used to have in Perth, and said, right, let's just max it out and go and play, get experience. But I think having that blind faith, in a way you could call it, not faith, but blind, I don't know what you call it actually.
Most people call it stupidity.
Stupidity, yeah. Blind willingness to throw yourself in the deep end and see what happens, I guess. I'm a big believer in getting outside your comfort zone. You don't learn anything if you're in your comfort zone. Steve Waugh's got the great book, Out of My Comfort Zone, and I managed to play golf with Steve once at the Dunhill Links, and he was a great guy to chat to about all this sort of stuff. He'd be a good guest, by the way.
Oh,
and
have his details.
Put him on the list. Yeah. But yeah, so I found that just throwing everything caution to the wind in some instances is all you have to do it, and see what happens. And if it doesn't work, well, you learn and then you reassess and then you move on, try something from a different angle. I think once we had that plan in place, any failure that came along, I was able to go, okay, that's all part of the plan. Yeah, we're just going to keep going. Before that, it was like, I'm not sure I'm good enough. I don't know what I'm doing here. Whereas after that, it just felt as though any problems that came along just were brushed aside, and it was, let's just keep going.
Continue to navigate. You did mention you retired about 8 years ago,
Oh,
8 to 10.
do we ever retire? I don't know. That's from tournament golf.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
How hard is it to make that decision? I mean, the beauty of golf typically is that you can play for a long period of time, and there's some guys that have played for a very, very long time. What was the underlying factor of you deciding that, you know what, enough's enough?
I guess in my early 40s, I found I had some knee issues. Snapped my ACL when I was an 18-year-old kid playing basketball. Never got it fixed, and over time it just kind of wore away. The surgeon at the time, he said, "Oh, you don't really need your knee, to play golf. That as long as you keep it strong." And I'm like, yeah, no problem. Anyway, over the years, the cartilage wore away, and I just found I was kind of struggling. So I had a reconstruction to get that sorted. I was never quite the same, and I'd say that was probably when I was around 40-ish.
Yeah.
I still play competitively, still in the US for the next few years. Got my card back because you have to sit out a while and to get the knee strong again. And you think you're just going to jump straight back on the horse, but obviously that doesn't work that way. So I found my game was now all of a sudden I was at this level, and then I'd come down and I was trying to work my way back up. Power and length were becoming a bigger factor in the game around then as well, and that was certainly not my forte. I was one of the shortest hitters on tour. My short game, my mind is how I used to compete at the top level. And I think when I was probably 44, 45, I guess, was around that time, I found myself being in a hotel room, as you do, because you're always on the road somewhere, and I thought, I don't want to be here. I would just rather be home with my kids and my wife and family. And when that starts happening, you kind of start questioning things. And because if you're not 100% into it,
Yeah.
you have to be, unfortunately, very, very selfish to be a professional athlete in those circumstances. When you're on the road, that's all you got to think about. And if you're not, it's you're not going to compete at your highest level, because there's young 20-something hungry guys coming up underneath you that just want to beat you to death. Not literally, but you know what I mean. And I'm sure you find the same thing in your football days towards the end there, how the competition just gets better and better every year. And the older you get, how do you improve yourself to stay at the level? And as I say, I just found things were not getting past me. I just found that, again, I didn't want to be there. I'd missed so many birthdays, graduations, all those things that going along with being a father and all that sort of thing, that I thought, I've achieved probably more than I ever thought I would. 20+ year career doing this. Maybe let's look at doing something else. And then we made the decision to, once that was made, we spent the next year or two in the US, funnily enough, trying to sell the house we were in. That was one of the bad decisions we made over there, is we bought a house just before the GFC. So
perfect
not
timing.
Great timing. So trying to sell this thing to get out of there was interesting. But it turns out if you lower the price enough, someone will buy it. So anyway, so we did that and then moved back to Australia, and then it was, let's start all over again, which was a big wake up call.
Coming back to that starting over again, the hotel room moment makes me reflect on a previous guest in Ash Barty, who's a good friend. And so many people were surprised with her retiring at the age of 25, 26. Do you have an instant understanding as to exactly why someone like her, who's at the absolute top of her game, world number one, made a decision like that?
I can understand it. Yeah. There's been instances like that in golf where David Duval, if you know that name, he got to number one in the world when Tiger was number one all the time, but he managed to overtake him and he got there and he looked around and he thought, is this it? Now some people like a Tiger or in tennis, a Roger or a Novak or whoever you talk about, Ash in those instances, maybe not so much Ash, but they go, okay, let's just keep going. We want to break every record in the book. Whereas she probably thought, well, I've achieved everything I've ever wanted to do. What else is there? You've either got to reevaluate your goals, and that's going to want to go one of two ways. I've done everything. I'm happy. Let's look to do something else. Or, okay, let's break every record in the book. And she probably thought, well, I'm happy. I've done what I wanted to do. Now it's time to do something else. So I completely understand how she could come to that decision. Now, pretty handy golfer too, from what I hear. So maybe she'll go down the golfing route. I don't know, but
she's done cricket as well.
She's a heck of an athlete.
She's got a couple more sports to tick off after she has baby number 2. But you touched on success, and I'd be interested to know how your definition of success has changed from being a professional golfer to now in everyday life?
That's a good question, actually. I've never thought about it that way. And because I came and again, in sport, it's all about results. Okay. You either win or you lose. And one of the things Alana used to really get stuck into me about, which I completely understand now, was if I didn't win, I thought I'd lost. So even though I'd finished second or third or had a good top 10, a good week, I didn't really celebrate, whereas I should have.
Yeah.
So I look back now and I think, I wish I'd have celebrated the smaller moments a bit more. I didn't win very much. I mean, I can only count those on one hand. Other players like Tiger, well, he hasn't got enough hands to count those on, so it's not a big deal. But so celebrating those little moments when, even though you didn't win, but it was a successful week because you played well to the best of your ability. For me, I didn't really see it that way when I was going through my career, playing wise. I wish I had. Now, funnily enough, some projects I'm involved with, all to do with golf, as it turns out. Some are ongoing, some are coming to fruition, some are, things like that. It's I'm trying to almost, when something good happens, I go, right, okay, let's open a nice bottle of wine here. Let's celebrate this because this is pretty good.
Yeah.
So it has changed, I think, in that perspective, if you know what I mean. And now some people may say it's to do with financial success, other it's personal success or whatever. There's different measurements for all that sort of a thing.
Yeah.
So it depends on the individual.
When we asked a previous guest, or we've asked many previous guests this, but if they had any regrets in life, a lot of the feedback has been around relationships and time spent with people. Now, I assume, as you mentioned before, there was milestones and birthdays that you may or may not have missed throughout the journey, and that's just because it's the calling and part of your duties as a golfer. Do you have any regrets, or is it just part and parcel of what life was?
You can always, I could go back and I'd say, oh, I wish I'd have done this, I wish I'd have done that. And whenever I do go down that path, I just tie myself in knots. So I try not to. There's certainly regrets. Golf-wise, for example, I wish I'd have done this in this tournament or whatever, or I wish we hadn't bought the house just before the GFC, things like that. But I mean, I listen to certain people talk about various things. I love podcasts these days. I'm going to become an avid listener now of yours, obviously. So I'm fascinated by what guests you may have had on. And you can always learn stuff from other people, and to listen is the best way to learn, rather than just talking as I'm doing the whole time here. I'd rather find out more about you, but I know that's not what this podcast is about. So where was I going with this? I've lost my train of thought now.
That's okay. Well, speaking of podcasts, because part of what you are doing now is Talk Birdie to Me.
Talk Birdie to Me.
Allen.
Mark Allen. We have a great time. Mark would be a great guest for you too, because what he's gone through, personally is incredible. But we started Talk Birdie to Me, funnily enough, just because, well, the PGA and I think Golf Australia, they had their podcasts and they were looking to get another one up and running. And I think Mark and I were going to be involved. So we thought, well, they're kind of dragging their feet. Why don't we just do it ourselves? And that's sort of how it all started. And then he Googled, what's a funny name for a podcast, and Talk Birdie to Me. I thought, yeah, it's cheeky. That sounds pretty good.
It's catchy.
So
I like
let's do it. And a couple of years later, it's going great guns. We're number one golf podcast in Australia. We're now filming it, putting it on YouTube, much like what you guys are doing as well. So we've got a nice following, and the guys they call our followers the Wolf Pack. I still don't like the Wolf Pack. After what is the movie, The Hangover?
The Hangover.
Yeah, I know my wife hates it, so she says, the female listeners aren't going to be wanting to call the Wolf Pack. So anyway, we've got to come up with a better name. But that's probably one of the most enjoyable things I do. The podcast, it's great, and a couple other. I don't know when this goes to air, but when does it go to air? Actually,
Yeah.
Okay.
So. Yeah.
So when this goes to air, I'll have a new video series launched. It's called Play Your Best Golf.
Okay.
So I've written a couple of books.
Yes.
First
Tour
one,
Mentality.
Yeah, that was on the mental game.
How to play your best golf.
And how to play your best golf, which is more about how to play golf. So I've always had an idea in my head around taking everything I've learned throughout my career, playing wise and coaching, mentoring wise, since I stopped playing, how to show people how to play. A lot of people want to know how to swing. right?
Yeah.
Technique, but there's an art to know how to play. And that's what I was really good at throughout my career. The mental side, strategy, how to play when it's windy or off a downhill lie, when you get into a bunker when there's soft sand, hard sand, all that sort of thing. No one really teaches that, I think, in a confined space. So I'm launching a series through my website. Very well, as I say, it'll be out by now when this podcast comes out. And I'm excited about that. The model is it's over 100 videos. You subscribe through my website, and then every month I'm doing a masterclass for all my subscribers, the members, as I call them, not the Wolfpack, the members. I've got to come up with a good name. Do a masterclass just for them once a month, live streamed anywhere in the world. So it'll be a global sort of a how to play golf,
Amazing.
how to play your best
and
golf.
Congratulations, and I'll definitely be tuning in because I
That'll be
need
fun.
all the help that I possibly can get. How long did it take to really work out from the transition point of view to being comfortable in just being not a professional anymore?
I still think I'm a pro golfer. That's
Yeah.
the weird thing. Now, when I go to the course and play, I know I'm not a tour pro anymore because my scores reflect that, handicaps and all that sort of thing. I'm working my way back down to scratch. So here's a scary stat for you. So a 10 handicapper is closer to a scratch marker than a scratch marker is to a tour pro.
Wow.
Okay. Now, people look at that and they go, 10 shots, how can a tour pro be off a plus 10? But you can't think of it in those terms. A tour pro plays the hardest version of a golf course every week. And then every week they play a different golf course every week.
Yeah.
A 10 handicapper and a scratch handicapper, they play the same course every week, and whether it's in the toughest conditions, whatever. So a tour pro will come to your course and probably shoot 6 under, 7 under, 8 under, no problem at all, which kind of freaks people out a little bit. They're that good. And, when I was at the peak of my career, I was able to do that. Not anymore, I know that. I'm still a handy golfer playing off +2 or 3 or whatever it is, but I'm nowhere near the level I would need to be to compete on tour anymore. So that's kind of a scary way to look at it.
You started your professional career and you were +4? Or
no, I was off a 4.
Off a 4.
Like above, like on the wrong side.
Yeah, right, wrong side. So effectively a 4 handicap.
Yeah, 4 handicapper. Yeah, +4 means you got to shoot 4 under the par. Yeah.
Like when you say that, and I didn't know the exact statistics, but I knew that there was a fair gap. And once you kind of hit scratch, there's a whole new level of golf that needs to come to be able to compete with the big boys, which you were one of. Does it amaze you that that's kind of where it started? Thinking back to it?
Yeah, it's funny.
Like does it remind you of how much hard work and discipline has gone into the journey? Because I assume a lot of the guys that you were competing with were naturally guns from kind of the moment they picked up a golf club.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they were state teams and Australian teams, and funnily enough, some of them were caddies for the other pro, as it turned out. And they're going, "How did you make it out here?" I'm like, well, so talent isn't everything. It's obviously helpful, but there is so much more that goes into elite sport. Everyone is talented. Now, you get the talented guys that are just miles ahead of everyone else. Tiger, Phil, and maybe you say Adam Scott and those sorts of players who just have this talent, which is incredible. And then you have the talented players who are very talented, but then they have this amazing mind that will carry them to almost the equal of those super talented players. But if the super talented players don't have the mind, they're still not going to be up there.
Yeah.
So give me a good talent with an incredible mind any day over what's the reverse of that? A supremely talented guy with an average mind, because the other guy's going to win every time.
Yeah,
I think in the long
run.
Yeah, in the long run.
Speaking of talented guys, who's your current favourite player on tour?
Ooh, well, I love the way Scotty Scheffler's going about it. That's an obvious choice. World number 1. Rory McIlroy's fun to watch. It was great to see him win the Masters. He just has a bounce and an athleticism about him, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
As far as the up-and-coming players go, from an Aussie perspective, Min Woo's always fun to watch. And his sister Minjee and Hannah Green, they're incredible. We've got a young guy, I'm partial to left-handers, Elvis Smiley, coming through, Queenslander, son of Liz Smiley, professional tennis player. Can't wait to see what he does. He's uber talented and has a really good head on his shoulders. So that'll be fun to see. So And then there's players in the US that no one's ever heard of coming out of college who are just insanely talented. So it's hard to know who's going to be the next star. So
it's in a great space, golf. It's a bit like run clubs. I feel like post-COVID, there's been a huge uptake. People are getting out there more. You talk about social connection and that doesn't exist, or it's becoming a big problem in society. Golf is one of those things that you can go and spend 4-5 hours with someone. And if you play 9 holes, a couple, but you're getting out there, you're in the open air and you're spending time, quality time, depending on how you're hitting it, with people.
Yeah.
If you could go back, and this is the question we love to finish on, and give yourself one piece of advice as a 15, 16-year-old, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a very good question. What would... I think the biggest thing, and as I learned through my mid-20s to early 30s, was don't look too far ahead. And it took me a while to develop that philosophy of how can I get better today? Whereas I think when you're young, you think, oh, I want to be this. You want to dream and be so far out there. But as far as career-wise, I would say that would be the thing I would say. Just, okay, let's just enjoy today, be as good as I can be today, and then we'll add those days together. And guess what? You're going to get better pretty fast. From a different perspective, I think... I wish one thing I had done, and you're talking about regrets a little bit earlier, was I wish I had have engaged a little bit more with the people I met out on tour. It's so easy to get caught up in your own little bubble, your own little focus, because you're so locked in into what you're doing. But you get to meet and play with some pretty cool people, in golf especially, but everyday life. I think you're going to meet people they all have a story, and you can always learn something from them. And that's what I'm probably finding through the podcasts and through some other things that I'm doing as well, where everyone, I'll coach some guy who comes to see me for a day, and just learning about them and what they've done, you go, wow, how cool is that? And if you listen and just get people talking about themselves, it's amazing how they can open up and really share some stuff that could be valuable to you one day, in whatever sense that may be. And if it's not, well, you just enjoy the story and congratulate them on what they're doing. So good fun.
I appreciate you sharing that. Working with a number of different talents, ages, what's the consistent thing that comes up that's a challenge point for most people?
As in coaching-wise, golf-wise, I think what I do find these days is most of them are a little one-dimensional. And that's no fault of their own. I think it's probably through technology, because the driver is so big, the ball doesn't spin very much. It's not that golf is easier, but they don't have to tap into their other senses so much. One of my favorite things I like to do when I'm working with a young pro or someone is we'll go out and play 9 holes, and I'll say, right, you cannot use a laser for these 9 holes. You've got to eyeball everything and try and play. And a lot of them say to me, well, how will I know what club to use?
Yeah.
Okay, so they've never had to go old school in a way. They've never had to figure it out by feel and touch and sight. They've always relied on data and numbers and things like that. So when they figure out that, okay, when I'm not playing well, especially, I can tap into these other things. I've got all these other shots, because you can teach them these other shots. That's when it opens up some other avenues to their games that in the long run will really help them, because you're never going to have your A game every day. Yeah. You're always, Scotty Scheffler's a great example. He almost won the Masters with his C game not long ago. If he's got his A game, well, sorry, it's over. Yeah. So helping golfers realize that you don't need to play your best all the time. Just play as well as you can that day with what you've got. That usually is good enough. So that's kind of where I tend to be able to help people a little bit more.
I love that. Appreciate that. Nick, I've really enjoyed getting to know your story a bit more. I particularly love the fact that whilst a defining moment for you was setting out that 3-year plan, it very much was about breaking that down to the daily wins, as much as you didn't celebrate the daily wins, which is a lesson that you learn and have started to do now.
I'm doing that now.
I loved the quote or the piece of advice that your dad gave you, just be insanely good at one thing. and then breaking that down from a daily point of view does really help with just executing. And that's something that I know that I need to fine tune in my own life. Your support network, obviously, you spoke very fondly of your wife and your girls, and how proud you are of them. So I appreciate you sharing the journey and the challenges that came along on that journey. But mate, I really took a lot out of that chat. I appreciate you making the time for us, and maybe in the next little while we can go for a hit and you can tell me how shit I really am.
Let's get
or
out
you can
the golf
take the
course.
American analogy and just pump me up.
So do you have a handicap?
No, I don't.
You don't. So say you're off the beauty about golf.
I'd need a shot a hole at least.
Well, the beauty about golf is I can go out and have a game. And if you have say you're off a 20 handicap, we can go out and compete. Whereas if I came out onto your ground, the footy oval, well, you're going to wipe the floor with me. Whereas on the golf course, with your handicap, you can still beat me. So that's the beauty of sport, why I love it. You were talking about post-COVID, how people are right into this game, and just seeing young kids come out and families together out on the golf course and getting into the game is something really cool and something that I love. And I didn't mention it earlier, but there's another project I'm working on. It's a marketplace for golfers to get into it as well. It's called Golfer to Golfer. So look out for that one, because it's going to be promoting sustainability in the game, getting everyone out on the golf course a bit more and things like that. So I can't wait to get you out on the golf course and see what it's like, because I play with a few footballers and you all drive the ball really well, but it is a bit sideways at times.
Oh, the craft is not a strength area.
Once you get your short game going, look out, that handicap will drop, trust me.
Well, again, we appreciate having you on, and look forward to that hit in the near future.
Sounds good.